Hi, folks. We are live once again on another session for the Thursday of this week. Today, we're going to be talking to uh, Dr. Nikhil, who's a renowned oncologist, and I'm very excited to get him on board. And he's going to be on. Hold on, we're just trying to go live, but I don't know why that's not working. Okay, he's going to be live 30 seconds. Okay. Sorry, Dr. Nikhil. Actually, for some reason, my Instagram was glitchy. And even though we just tested it, it actually said unable to connect, unable to connect. So,
it can happen all the time. And I was also struggling from my end to join. So anyways, now good that we are live now.
yes. Correct. Good that we are absolutely live right now. All right. So we have lots to talk about, dear audience. I hope you guys stay tuned because we have a big agenda to connect. It's going to be really exciting. It's going to be information that you guys don't want to miss out on. So keep tuned. First and foremost, let me introduce Dr. Nikhil. If I get breathless, just pardon that because his list of degrees is too long. So I might need an inhaler at the end of it, but let's begin. He has an MD degree. He's a doctor of medicine. He has studied in the National Academy of Medical Sciences, which, by the way, I didn't know. I only got to know when I researched that this academy actually works to upgrade the medical policy of the nation and promotes the medical education for medical experts. I think that's pretty cool. The fact that I am talking to you, Dr. Nikhil, my self-worth has just increased right now. But besides that, the degrees still continue. He is also a DNB, which is a Diploma of National Board, and that is only awarded to specialist doctors in India. So we are not talking to a normal MSA doctor. Okay. Next degree is PDCR. He has a professional diploma in clinical research. And above all, he is a DM, which is a doctorate of medicine in medical oncology. He is the chief of the medical oncology department in Yashoda Hospital in Hyderabad. All right. So we know how great you are medically, Dr. Nikhil. How about you introduce us as a person, right? I mean, who is Dr. Nikhil? Let's begin with that.
So I must thank you for your kind introduction. I think it is far, overwhelming. I must tell you. I think for a doctor, it's just like, the degrees are always for the past for us. What we do today is more important. I think that applies to most of us. But thank you once again. As you had mentioned, currently, of course, I am working as a chief of medical oncology at Yashoda Hospital, Hyderabad. And when it comes to a person as Nikhil, I think, I am more of a, I would say, kind of a guy who would, if one word which I have to say is more of a empathetic guy who likes to, when I'm not a doctor, that is the only way probably I would like to move in the society. So that is one thing what I would try to describe with myself. Lots of friends. I play few sports. I love cricket and uh, uh, quite a long list of, I must say, good friends around. So that's about it. Otherwise, I'm busy most of the time. So that's a typical doctor's life, I would say.
No, but I'm glad to hear that you're socially active and you find the time to interact with your friends. And you have also a personal life, which I think is very important, especially for people who are as busy as you, right? And I'm only saying that because as a psychotherapist, I see a lot of people who get caught up in their journey of work and then a lot of life starts troubling them, right? But coming back, before we forget, this talk is exclusively sponsored by Newbie Bliss. Who's Newbie Bliss? Newbie Bliss is a multivitamin which you need to get and order right now. Why? Because it is the only vitamin that is both water soluble and fat soluble. Fat soluble, how, you might ask? Well, have you ever heard of omega-3 fatty acids, folks? How do you eat your omega-3 supplements right now? There is a separate supplement that you buy, right? But this little fella that I'm asking you to buy actually has both of these components, right? That is damn cool. And not only that, these are extremely clean vitamins. What do I mean by clean? I mean that they're gluten-free, which works for people like me who have gluten allergies. It is vegan, which works for vegetarians in India who are conscious of what they eat. It is nut-free, sugar-free, GMO-free, all that good stuff. And it is US FDA approved. So the next time you are looking for something that, an essential vitamin that works well, I suggest you go and look in UV Bliss app and then take an informed decision. And if you do decide on buying, I do have a promo code. I'm not doing it for the commercial reason, but if you do find the benefit in it, it is a completely informed decision. Go ahead and look up the promo code. I mean, then why not get a discount, right? But moving forward, I had asked the audience for a lot of questions, and they were really high because, well, it is oncology, right? Cancer. I mean, somehow cancer is a word that jars with us, with the human psychology. So the first question that I had, which was the most common question, is that is cancer more prevalent in men or women, and can it be avoided?
So before I start and before I come to this question,
Sure.
you had an important point that cancer is a word, and I totally agree. It's not a sentence. It's just a word. It's just a diagnosis. So at the same time, there is a lot of stigma attached to it through societies, a lot of negativity to it. But as we progress through today's discussion, I hope I will be able to put forward some important messages towards society. And of course, we should be. It's I know it's not an easy disease.
Yeah, now I can hear you. For a moment, I just lost
Yeah,
with your audio.
sorry about it.
Yeah.
It's a challenging disease, I must tell you. But at the same time, it's something what has a lot of treatment options which are available. And coming back to the question that whether it is more prevalent in men or women, is that correct? Yes.
That is correct.
Yeah.
That was the question, yes.
So correct. So slightly the incidence seems to be slightly skewed towards men as compared to women, and there are certain reasons for that. One is the I would say the addictions are slightly more common amongst men. So when you talk about addictions, you talk about habits like smoking or
Okay.
maybe to a certain extent the excessive consumption of alcohol. At the same time, the lifestyles and at times their profession, like the men used to tend to go out more often, work more in factories, where they have a higher possibility of getting exposed to various, I can say, toxins or so-called what is called as carcinogens, which are
Correct.
kind of certain products which increases your risk of getting a cancer. So that is probably one of the reasons. So just to put certain broad numbers here, the incidence of men, I would say, as compared to women is, let's say for in 100, maybe let's say 3 to 4 men get affected. In women, it might be slightly lower, like around 2. So maybe slightly lesser number amongst women as compared to men. Having said that, not only in India but across the world, there are challenges to get exact numbers. For
Okay.
developed countries, the numbers are very well known, but countries like India or other African or other smaller countries, where the not entire the statistics may not be perfect, and so we have some kind of skewed numbers in certain countries.
Okay. All right. Um, can cancer be avoided? I mean, can it be prevented? I think that's the better word. Can it be? Can you just prevent it somehow?
Uh, Quite an important question, I must tell you. And I have a lot of, I would say, patients, but their relatives who ask me this question. So, doc, now this is what has stuck in my family. What is that thing what I should be doing to prevent cancer? Now, I must tell you that cancer is not a disease where only one factor or one dominant factor is responsible for getting a cancer, but it can be a multifactorial disease. And when we talk
Okay.
about it, there are certain factors which you can do something about it. And there are
Okay.
certain factors which you probably, I would say that, which probably you don't have any control on such certain factors Just to give an example, is like your genetics or your family history. So this is something which is with you all along. If you have got a family member who has got a cancer, cannot change that history at all for you. And there are certain genes which are running in the families. So typically you cannot do anything about it. But there are a lot of other things which can be done which are in our hands. So when we talk about cancer prevention, you talk about certain modifications in your lifestyle, which comes in the form of better diet. I would say to avoid as much as red meat as possible, or you
Okay.
can talk about smoking cessation, or for that matter tobacco in any form. India is
Okay.
one country that is notorious for getting a smokeless tobacco like gutkhas and khainis, all that. So these are certain factors which are in our hands, like having a regular exercise, maintaining a fair weight all along. These are all very important, yet these are not something which society really focuses on. The society more focuses on something which is like, how can I change my genes? Can I program my genes and all that? So a lot can be done. So it can be preventable. In addition, there are certain vaccines which are available, which let's say, for example, one HPV vaccine or human papilloma virus vaccine, which
Okay.
is associated with cervical cancer in women and to certain extent oropharyngeal cancer in men. And
Okay.
of course, we know about hepatitis B virus, which is in the long run can damage liver and can make liver at risk of getting liver cancer. So these are, and we have got very robust vaccinations which are available against these viruses. So these are the ways. One is lifestyle modifications, try and understand your risk, get yourself vaccinated, and having a healthy lifestyle. These are very simple, I would say, but important pillars how we can steer ourselves away from cancer as much as possible.
Oh, that was so informative because I didn't know about the vaccine either. Is there can anyone get the HPV vaccine? I mean, so if I can just walk into a hospital tomorrow and get it?
So I must tell you that this HPV is a sexually transmitted virus, and typically it is currently recommended for girls who, I would say, before their marriage they can actually take it. And typical age which is recommended is somewhere from the age of 9 to 20 to 25 years of age, where they are,
9 years.
yes, it as early as 9 years now it is recommended. And typically if you are sorry, if you have not been exposed to the virus, then there is a significant benefit of use of this particular vaccine. So before their first exposure, if you get vaccinated, the girls get vaccinated, there is a very almost 80 to 90% of cervical cancer is associated with this particular virus. So a lot can be done in this regard by having a proper vaccination. And even in the women who are married, a lot of women who are already married and ask me this question, do I have any benefit of use of this vaccine? So here the science has have slightly blurred lines over here.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that there won't be benefit, but the benefit is not really shown in the big trials. So having said that, it is important to understand the benefit or magnitude of benefit will be slightly less in maybe in married women if they're already been exposed for whatever reason. It's
Understood.
more for younger girls where you can actually get a lot of benefit, and long-term risk of cancer really goes down with this vaccine.
That is very, very good for me to know because I have so many young clients actually. I had no idea about this. So you've actually I feel empowered already. Thank you. Yes. So the other thing you said which was very interesting is obesity. So does obesity actually have a connection to cancer? Because you said, maintain your like exercise and I forgot the word you mentioned. I'm saying obese, but you spoke about body fat, right? Yeah.
So,
So
sorry, sorry about it. So obesity is,
no, you please stay hydrated. You're talking a
no,
lot.
I'm just having a bit of the flu is in the air, so that is showing its effect. It can't even spread off. It is so rampant. So yes, obesity is associated with certain cancer as a direct risk factor. And when I talk about certain cancers, just to give an example, in women, breast cancer, the women who are obese have got higher propensity of getting breast cancer. Also, cancer like colon cancer or prostate cancers, these are also quite closely associated with obesity. Why it happens? It all something to do with metabolism of the body. As we understand, the obese patients with a slight higher chance of getting higher inflammation all throughout. And inflammation is also one of the key pathways of getting cancer. So which pathway gets activated and how is probably beyond discussion of this particular talk. But one thing for sure, obesity, as the weight BMI starts crossing certain numbers, let's say 25, 30 plus, then the risk of getting cancer also increases slightly proportionately.
Interesting. That was good. That was good. Okay, I'm so glad I have you here. Right. So the next question is, how does cancer affect the body physically, mentally, and emotionally? Because it's not just something that depletes you physically, right? I think it takes a toll on the entire mind, body, soul.
It
So
it is so
you have to
it is so true. I know it's like just to hear the word of C or cancer for the patient itself is quite devastating to begin with. So even though they may not be feeling too much physically, too much of I would say insults at that point in time, but mentally they really are hit hard, or almost like somebody has punched a blow in their belly. And that often is, I would say, a lot of patients keep on telling us that initial time to accept is quite, it takes a lot from the patient as well as family, and it really takes a toll on them. So the question is quite pertinent, and I would try to elaborate. I will try to break into three parts: physically, mentally, as well as emotionally. I am sure mentally, when you talk about mental and emotional health, I am sure you are a better expert than me in to discuss that. But I would try to address some of the points what I see in my clinic all the time, and then we can drive certain important points home. Physically, see, cancer can affect any organ of the body. In that way, when we talk about cancer of the, let's say, mouth, let's say oral cancer, you talk about lungs, or let's say liver, abdomen, stomach, pancreas, and so on and so forth. So typically, whenever any organ gets involved, it typically the function might get affected. So it might be a structural change in that organ. Let us say, for example, if somebody gets a large ulcer in the mouth, typically if you see a cigarette packet, you see a typical picture of a large fungating like mass lesion, which is often visible. So one is a structural changes where the structure gets changed. Let's say if somebody gets a cancer of a food pipe, so there is a physical change in the form that the food gets obstructed. Patient may not be able to swallow. So that's a typical symptom. So every disease will come with a specific set of symptom. A lung cancer may throw up a symptom like a cough or breathlessness. Gastric cancer or gastrointestinal cancer patient might present with in terms of some, I would say, weight loss or abdominal pain or belly pain or nausea and vomiting. A brain tumor patient may present with headache, vomiting, weakness on one side of the body. So this is how typically physically a cancer takes a toll on the patient.
Okay.
As I mentioned, these are all symptomatic things, and at the same time, there will be like some kind of cascading effects, like one organ puts another organ under stress. So sometimes the cancer spreads to the another organ. Let's say a lung cancer spread into the liver, then the patient may develop belly pain or lack of appetite, sometimes jaundice. These are all physical ways of looking at it. More importantly, again, the cancer is not all about treating the patient physically and only to hit the disease hard, and that's about it. These patients have a lot of other needs. So when we talk about other needs, these are typically emotional and mental well-being. And these patients, not only patients, but also their family are slightly, heartbroken many a times when this diagnosis is revealed. And it takes it takes always, it's also important for a treating doctor to understand their needs. Something like I always teach or tell my juniors that it's important to treat the patient but not only the disease. A disease is like treating a cancer is not, we cannot have so much of a total patient. Patients may have emotional needs, patients may have mental needs, patients family other needs, support system is required, financial needs. So there are so many needs which a patient actually need. I mean, he's actually requires so much of support at various levels. So each and every level is equally important.
Understand.
Emotionally, they feel that anxiety, they feel that confusion, they feel that restlessness. They have denial, they have anger, and we see all in our patients, one or other levels. We see these patients, and it is important to understand what that particular patient is going through, what a family is going through. There can be a lot of emotional meltdown, and these really need to be addressed as well as actual treating the cancer. And as I mentioned, mental well-being and emotional well-being really go hand in hand, and that is a
Okay.
tough, you know, as doctors we try to do our bit for sure, but at the same time we also always want, or I would always advise to get psychologists like you on board to make the life much more easier for the patient, because if the patient's mental and emotional well-being is taken care of well, they just fly through the treatment, they just come out well, their side effects are less, they are much positive in terms of their outcome, and they don't treat, as I mentioned, they don't treat cancer as a sentence. They just feel that it's just one of the, I would say, a small phase of their life which they will be
Mm-hmm.
able to pass through this
Okay, right.
treatment. So that is typical when we talk about the various aspects of mental health as well as physical and emotional health.
No, I think what you're saying is very right. I mean, though I'm not an expert, right? But then the reason I'm saying that is because I actually did have, not many, but I did deal with a few cancer survivors. And what I essentially did for them through therapy was exactly what you said, right? Repurpose how they're thinking, give them a new perspective. So just reprogram their mind and treat that journey as just something. It's just it's not your life. It is just one aspect of this journey called life. Because otherwise it becomes extremely overwhelming for them, because even though they had survived it, their pain was larger than life. Like they were getting nightmares, the anxiety was real, the overwhelm was real. And that kind of hinders and impairs their day to day functionality, right? So you were bang on. I think just giving them a different perspective and rewiring how they perceive the cancer is really what they need at that point. Okay, so but though you mentioned that, what does the doctor, right? Since we're talking about cancer in India right now, does an oncologist typically offer that kind of source? Like, do you actually have a psychologist on board, and is a psychologist actually part of the treatment? So, is that kind of support offered?
So again, quite an important question. Sorry, but again, there are variations from center to center.
Okay.
So when I practice, we didn't have all those supports with us, but now that we have got slightly robust system with us, we have got a psychologist on board. We also a psychiatrist in case required for pharmacotherapies. We also have something what is called as bit of a pain management, pain clinics. So we are more looking at more of a holistic approach towards cancer care. Having
Okay.
that, I also work in the rural parts of India where it's a real struggle to only to cater to their treatment needs. So the entire focus and efforts are only towards their outcome in terms of let us try to make you get better, cure,
Mm-hmm.
palliate well. And most of the centers, especially the government centers and some of the rural tier 2, tier 3 city centers, are actually overwhelmed with the actual cancer work. So cancer is a very, it's like a tsunami what we are anticipating in the next few years. And if you go by the global data, the numbers are only bound to increase or double every fifth or seventh year across the world. That's a huge number what we are looking at. And when it comes to treatment part of it, then what happens is typically there is something what is, I would say, compulsory, and
Mm-hmm.
what is, as doctors sometimes decide whether should I be really discussing. But if the doctor has a stipulated time in a day and he's supposed to take care of, let's say, 50, 60 odd patients, in this discussion, I would say that a lot of things are lost in, I would say, in translation. And as a doctor, we also are, I would say, guilty to certain extent, uh, especially when we don't have a support system now that we have it available. But there are situations where our focus remains on getting them cured, talking about side effects, talking about survival, talking about, let's say, other issues. But sometimes these are slightly, kept aside in at times during discussion. And I'm quite honest in this regard.
Oh, that's good. I think having an honest doctor is the best doctor to have, honestly. So yeah, so expect a lot of referrals coming your way. Hopefully not, but then people who are in need, I think I know who to send them to. But coming back, something that you mentioned is pretty scary, Dr. Nikhil. You said that the graph or the statistics that you have, all right, is that cancer is going to grow phenomenally, right? That's intimidating data. That's not a good data to have, right? And is there nothing that we can do? I mean, yeah.
I think this is not a data. I mean, just to the numbers are not to intimidate anyone. Number is more about gearing up with right things so that we at least can do it about. Now there are reasons why these numbers are on the rise. There is a science behind it. I'll just take a brief minute over here to just to make you
Yes,
understand why. There was
yes, please.
there was a time when the patient only used to get diagnosed with, let's say, tuberculosis when there were lack of even proper diagnostics. Now we have got a very fair diagnosis available, not only in the bigger cities like Hyderabad or Mumbai for that reason, but even in the smallest of the places, you get X-rays, ultrasound, CT scans, MRIs, all are available.
Fair
So the
enough.
pickup rate itself has gone up, first thing. So cancer was always there. It was not diagnosed at some point in time. Now the cancer pickup is better. There was a time when the patient never used to receive the doctor just because they didn't have any facilities. They were not financially good enough, I would say.
Okay.
The government is supporting a lot in this regard. Government has come with a lot of programs for cancer patients for free treatment. Whether you talk about Telangana, you talk about Maharashtra, Delhi, all these places, they're doing some good job for underprivileged patients by getting free of cost. A lot of good things are happening. So one reason is more diagnosis, better pickup rate. Our population is now living longer. So as you live long, the cancer is a typical of a disease of an older age. So it's just that we are kind of staying long enough to get some kind of a disease, and one of the diseases like cardiac disease or stroke disease is a cancer. So that is also adding to some kind of compounding in terms of numbers. And
Okay.
we, of course, know our lifestyles, right, where we are responsible. Probably our, pardadas might have done a bit better than what we have done. They are probably more active. I'm sure we always have learned a bit from them all the time. But as you can see, our, the various lifestyle changes, like, in terms of smoke, everything is available very easily, especially even for the younger population, which is sometimes a scary issue for us. But smoking, drinking, alcohol, and all that, they also are more rampant now. Pollution is always adding. Then I always, of course, discuss about certain viruses. So these are all kind of tend to contribute more and more. And then a lot of patients keep on asking me, are there any pesticides on my vegetables?
Correct.
And honestly, I
Yeah.
I don't have answer for it because even I consider the same. So your risk is as good as mine. So at times
True. True. Yeah.
it can
Yeah.
it can happen at times, but this is we are living in a bit of a polluted world, and we know that when you talk about winters in Delhi, how difficult they can be for patients. So, or for it matter, even for normal population, I would say. So
Mm-hmm.
these are some harsh realities which we are supposed to live with. and better diagnostic techniques. All these are kind of contributing to get those numbers higher and higher. So we expect more and more numbers anyways, because these are not my prediction. These are numbers coming from the science.
Of course, right. Another thing you mentioned is symptoms, not symptoms, side effects, right? Uh, how bad are the side effects? And sometimes can side effects be more dangerous than the disease itself?
So in general, I hope it won't happen like that. The way, like more side effects than the disease per se. The disease may be less painful, but the side effects can be more troublesome for the patient.
Mhm.
It doesn't happen regularly, but it can happen once in a while. And as a doctor, we are not geared up uh, to tackle those complications. In general, what happens in life, what we typically do is we talk always about risk versus benefit, and that is what we do. Just the way just to give an example, you walk on the road, you have some work to do, right? So you cross the road, but there is always a risk that something can hit. So life is all about getting those balances right. And here, when the benefit is much more in terms of cure, in terms of longer survival, we at times tell our patients to stay strong and handle side effects. Thankfully, with the newer medications which are available, which are definitely much lesser toxic, a lot of patients ask me that, no, will I get burning in my body? Will I get, is it very painful? And these are, I think, not common things, these are rare things, which are, I would say, things of the past. We have got better pain medications, we got better anti-nausea medications. We try to preserve hair for many patients undergoing chemotherapy. So science has really evolved a lot to make the patient's journey, the troublesome journey, much more comfortable. I won't say enjoyable, but definitely more comfortable for sure. So not that bad in general, but there are certain cancers where, like blood cancers, where at times the things can go slightly difficult in a difficult way in certain patients, but they are very handful of patients. Not That's not a rule, as I would say here.
Okay. That's good to know. I think that's good to know, right? Because, like you said, that can also be a scary part. All right. In fact, it's very funny that you mentioned insecticide and pesticide on the food, because when the pandemic came, I think everyone did that at home, right? I mean, I know we did that too. Every time we bought food, pehle jaake scrub it nicely, put it in a water, then put it in wash it with soap or some kind of Dettol or whatever. Do you recommend that we still do it? Does that make sense? Or is it okay to just, like you said, risk versus benefit ratio? I mean, you just accept it as
So
life.
it's a tough situation. A lot of people are going organic way, but I'm not too sure what is organic, so-called organic food way, or I would say, for that matter, a lot of eggs, chicken, and vegetables all are getting organic these days. I don't know how, but as long as you uh, sorry, you wash your vegetables properly, that is what I can recommend. I'm not too sure whether you are supposed to use detergent to wash it. I think we are
Yeah,
not supposed to do that. Just wash it thoroughly, buy from a good place. And I don't have, I mean, honestly, again, I may not be the best expert over here, but that
right.
is what I do day-to-day life, just to ensure that we are doing some basic things right over here, and we cannot be paranoid about it at the same time.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because paranoia is just going to mess with our mind, right? At the end of it.
So true.
So, all right. Now that's a good one. Okay. Um, what's the best way for a loved one to support a cancer patient?
Okay, that's quite important question, and something which again we don't discuss much anytime, because we expect that the loved one might be knowing what to do, but that may not be the case all the time. In fact, there are at times there can be a lot of hesitancy. In fact, I get a lot of patients where the relatives or the loved one tells me not to disclose the diagnosis to a patient. That's quite a common thing which happens in India. But at the same time, the loved ones are also going through their own emotional trauma just by the diagnosis and slight uncertainties, what are going to be the future scans, survival, and all that. They also have their equal, I mean, they are also go through quite a lot of emotional turmoil during this treatment journey or treatment, I would say. But at the same time, the patient is the one who is I must tell you this, is going to be the center of attention for everything. So here a loved one can do a lot. And the most important thing what he should do is about talking, to talk to a patient and understand their needs. And many a time it's just that when you talk it out, the patients do feel better. You try to tell them that how much they love the patient, how much they want this patient to do well in their life, how much they are there with the patient all throughout the journey. Now, these are very important things when you talk about treatment part of it. But as I always tell my patients and sometimes relatives also, that it's a teamwork at the end of the day. It's not only a doctor or a nurse who is treating you or curing you. It's the entire team of friends, families, doctor, nurses, all involved, and the entire ecosystem is going to help you get better and in a much more soothing way when they come out of this entire
Correct.
journey. So a lot can be done, especially by friends. It's more about communication in a positive way, and it makes a big difference. I have seen the patients who are stressed have more adverse effects. I have seen the patients who have got a very supportive family. They do extremely well, especially when they come with their family and friends. They are at it, and they kind of know once the initial this acceptance phase is over, they are quite courageous enough to handle the subsequent treatment. And hats off to all the patients who are out there to fight the cancer. I must tell all of them that they are real warriors and combatants, and uh, uh, keep fighting, don't give up. That's what I can always tell everyone.
Not just the patients, I think even their support system, right? I mean, because it's a fight for them also. It's a struggle for them too. So because each journey is different. So but yeah, but that's very well said. I think we already spoke about how diet and vitamin shortage affects, unless you want to add something more to the conversation, because you already spoke about the preventative measures in place. But do you have something specific, I mean, to say, to add to this? Are there any specific vitamins or, diet-wise, should we be focusing more on protein or carb or less on the fat? I don't know.
I think you
Go.
told. No, I
No, no,
you covered
no,
almost
no.
everything, and I think that's how we normally tell our patients to have a very healthy, homemade, balanced diet, freshly cooked one. Avoid as much as possible outside food. Go slightly higher on proteins. Go slightly low on the refined carbs or sugars, I would say. Anything which gives more inflammation to the body, we try and avoid as much as possible. At the same time, the calories should be matching the amount of calories what they are taking. There should be a kind of daily a diary or monitoring should be done all along. These are small but yet very important things, because we have seen that the patients who have got adequate diet do well in terms of their survival. I'm not talking about only side effects. I'm talking about the long-term survival. The patients who are
Wonderful.
nourished, I get adequate proteins, get adequate vitamins, micronutrients in their food. They easily cope up with their treatment well. Their treatment breaks are less. Their treatment intensity is much better. And all these things also help in terms of getting their
Oh,
longevity. When you talk about certain vitamins, yes, vitamins again play a quite important role in the patient's well-being, and that is something what we in general, not only for cancer patients, but in general for all the patients. But there are certain cancers which are associated with certain deficiencies also in the long run in the science.
okay.
Just to give an example,
Okay.
let's say the folic acid deficiencies are known with certain gastrointestinal cancer like a pancreatic cancer or colon cancer, etc. And these are all observational population based studies, that when they looked into a certain population and they looked at certain incidents of certain cancers, and then they have some data about certain vitamin levels, and they could get some kind of a, I would say, loose correlation with certain vitamins.
Uh-huh.
Whether it's a very strong relation, I think that will be some discussion for some other time. But there has been some hint that certain vitamin deficiencies are associated with certain cancer incidence. Another is vitamin B6, vitamin B12, which are again deficiencies associated with lung cancer, then zinc deficiency. They are all known with some cancers here and there, whether it's small or big and all that. But there are very tiny risks which are seen. Having said that, the association may not be extremely robust, might be a bit loose over here, but there has been some understanding that it is important to have all those things at the right proportion or right levels in your body. That might also help. That might definitely help to a certain extent.
Wonderful. That's actually a very good to know. So, do you actually recommend multivitamins to patients,
So,
or is it just through normal organic food, like natural sources of food?
so for patients, it's a different story. When the patients
Okay.
are on treatment, we may not provide them a lot of multivitamins, but when they are
Okay.
and when their body has been, I would say, has undergone quite a significant assault over a period of time, then depending upon either you identify certain deficiencies, try and understand their symptoms, and you one can prescribe certain multivitamins, but these are based on case to case basis. And the patients who are already
Okay.
through their treatment, RDA based multivitamin recommendation is perfectly okay, because
Okay.
that may not harm them to a certain extent, but that can only help them in terms of getting
Wonderful.
well-being right. On treatment, we don't normally prescribe too much of multivitamins. We do not have very strong data, but post-treatment, post-cancer therapies, then let us say, just to give an example, somebody undergoes a stomach treatment surgery and they immediately go deficient for multivitamin or vitamin B12. Somebody with the intestinal
Okay.
can have serious B12 deficiencies. Somebody with
Right.
the cancer might get some thiamine and other deficiency where sometimes the patient may not be able to take adequate diet also. So these are
Right.
important. And why it is also important is because sometimes this vitamin deficiency also manifests as hardly any symptoms, to the extent that these patients are only chronically fatigued, to
Correct.
sometimes, as you know, you might see a lot of thyroid patients. They are just like depressed, and you just do their thyroid profile. It
Ex-
is hypothyroid.
Yeah.
So this typically happens. It's important to also to run sometimes the battery of test. Sometimes challenge them with multivitamin, but this is again on case to case basis. And
Okay.
times patient do feel better. Their body pains are less. Their energy levels are higher. Their physicality goes up substantially, and
Okay.
it can help in many patients who have finished their therapy.
Wonderful. That's good to hear. That means that our sponsor, Newbie Bliss, is a good product for the audience to consume and purchase and think about. So you have just vetted that, because that is something that I also have always wondered, right? Are multivitamins really good long term? But I think you've answered the question in many different ways. So obviously it is on a case to case basis. It really depends on your situation. But erring on the side of caution and actually replenishing the vitamins through a multivitamin is always a good idea. Would you agree? I mean, in a nutshell?
Uh, I would agree to certain extent over here. At the same time, I don't want everyone to have a take-home message that the only way to do that. It is always good to talk to your doctor once, try and understand,
Right.
and try to go for a good multivitamin which can be easy on you. I know sometimes we do see come across patients who come with some kind of issues with certain multivitamins. So
Correct.
talk to doctor, try and understand what they're going to take it. And again, as I mentioned, it's all about knowing, it's all about understanding, and then it all about accepting. So once you go through those phases, I'm sure most of and there are many vitamin brands which are available. There are very good brands, there are not so good brands. I'm not here to really promote anything here, but I'm just trying to give a perspective why multivitamins can be useful in patients, also in the general population, also for their well-being. Because many a times we do not know what is happening. It is just that sometimes we struggle for no reason, or lack of diagnosis, or lack of, I would say, resources. So it is important that these are also can be one of the reasons why somebody is feeling that symptom. And that is how one can also think about it, and that is how one can also approach a doctor and then try to discuss it out and then see how it can go in the future.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I think that is a fair approach, and you're absolutely right. I mean, we should not be married to one vitamin to another, right? I mean, even yeah, that's not something that I do too. But then definitely for mental patients, like you said, there's a direct correlation between micronutrient deficiency, vitamin or a mineral deficiency, and their mental and emotional well-being. All right. So the one of the last questions that I have, okay, we are almost the hour is almost up, but the last question that I had, and all these questions, by the way, were sent by the audience, correct? So I am sure that once I post this out on YouTube and Facebook, there will be a flurry of activity because this conversation has been extremely empowering and helpful. So, you know, I'm glad we're doing this. But the last question is, of course, about the mortality rate. I mean, we have to end it with that, right? What is the mortality rate in cancer patients today, given all the treatment and all the forward technology that you have? Number one. And number two, what is the recurrence rate? Again, given everything else that you have today, right? Given all the progress that we've made in terms of treatment and maintenance and upkeep.
So again, this question is actually a bit difficult to answer from my side. First, I must tell you that it's quite a broad-based question. When you talk
I agree,
about
actually.
mortality per se, again is not one disease, but it's a myriad of it's like a basket of diseases. Like every organ and every organ behaves differently. So just to give some kind of rough understanding where we are right now and where we are going to move and where were we in the.
Okay.
So there was a time, just to give an example, a lung cancer patient who used to get diagnosed, let's say, in advanced disease, it used to be a death sentence for the patient in I would say 8 to 12 months time, when I'm talking about early 2000s, when I education in this field. Now, at least I would say 20% of patients will easily cross 5 years despite having a stage 4 cancer. So science has evolved, and science has evolved such an extent to get higher cure rates, if not cure in all patients, because in a stage 4 cancer, the cure rates are very, very abysmal. So we have got very few.
Okay.
But in general, these patients usually go for what is called as disease prolongation or life prolongation, better quality of life, palliative care, and so on and so forth. But what I am trying to tell you over here is the disease of like cancer, science is trying to make it like a disease like a diabetes, where you can live with the disease, you can stay with the disease,
Correct.
yet you can live longer. And that is one of the reasons why the mortality seems to be slightly coming down over a period of time. Having said that, if I get 100 patients with all stages and all of various permutations, we are still struggling somewhere in the range of 65 to 70 odd percent. So that's not a small in terms of cure. It's very important for audience to understand that there are lots of cures about cancer. It is just that due to social stigma or for whatever reason, many patients don't come out in the open except for a few celebrities that they have cancer. But there are a lot of cancer patients who are actually cured and they are doing well in their lives. And unfortunately, society, or I would say for a matter, our mind, it has this tendency to focus on negative things, especially when you see a mortality nearby due to cancer, and we kind of associate cancer and mortality so closely that we feel that
Correct.
this is what exactly is going to be the association for this patient. But
Correct.
science, when we talk about science, we are making small but sure incremental gains in terms of mortality. So every passing decade, we might improve by a couple of percent, and this is expected to happen over a period of time. A period of time, we are getting a lot of newer treatment options, which are very, very easy to handle. We are getting better techniques. We are getting better radiation techniques. We have got transplant transplants, we have got bone marrow transplants, we have got newer therapies. So all these things together, on one side, the science to reduce the side effects. On other side, science is helping us to give a longer or better survival. So these are all the things which, like, the modernity seems to be slightly, eventually may wane, but it might take a lot of time. But I must assure to the audience that science is really making giant strides in terms of the something as an oncologist, I'm sure oncologist community, we are extremely proud of that. I'm sure the future is going to be even be better for not only for patients, for treating doctors who more and more patients surviving and lesser mortality. About recurrence, yes, cancer do have recurrences, not for all patients, but there are always those subset of patients. Typically, we talk about 3:1, means out of 3 to 4 patients, one might recur. Typically happens not only with me, but this happens, I would say, most of the major across the world. Again, you treat the patient with all the treatments, but sometimes the cells are inherently resistant for whatever reason. And that just, I would say, just like when you get a disease, many times patient ask me, why did I get a disease? I don't have a single bad habit. And I just have one simple, it's not simple, but just a very, I would say, bit of an explanation that maybe it just was your bad luck. That's about it. I really do not know. Maybe something to do with your gene, if I can identify, sometimes do with your habits, but at the end of the day, something is to do with your also, like, we see thousands of smokers, but you get some smokers who get, some who don't. But that the smoking can be protective. Don't want to push that particular message here. But it happen, and this is also sometimes to do with the cancer genes, where sometimes some cells may not respond as well as compared to other patients. So these patients.
That was a lot of information to process, but a lot of good information to process. I mean, I definitely feel smarter. I mean, I don't know about the audience, but I feel 10 times smarter than from where I was. So thank you so much. This was a great discussion, Dr. Nikhil. I truly appreciate your time. You have actually spent an entire hour with us. I know you're a busy man. You have a busy lifestyle. Work is extremely busy and stressful, and still you chose to come and give your guidance and your information and your content and your wisdom to the audience. I mean, this is leaving a footprint in sands of time, right? This is doing something good for the community and building a community. So I truly appreciate you coming and being a part of the show.
And Harleen, I must thank you also for inviting me for this forum. It's my privilege and pleasure to be part of this. And it's always good to share a bit of a knowledge, and especially with your big number of followers. I'm sure some of you would get benefited through this knowledge exchange. And as you touched upon quite an important aspect of not only the physical health, but I would say mental and emotional health, which is slightly brushed aside. Also, an important lesson for we as an oncologist to really sharpen our skills even further in this regard. Try to identify right people like you to really help our patients to make their life even be, much more, I would say, better, comfortable, and worthwhile as we continue to keep hitting the cancer hard through our difficult treatments. So thank you so much.
No, you're most welcome. And absolutely, I think in the end, it is a collaborative effort and working with the patient first in mind. That needs to be the thing. I think we're done. Does the audience have any questions that you'd like to ask? I know we've had the audience go in and out based on their busy lives also, because everyone can obviously see on their own pace at a later point. I'm just going to give 20 seconds to see if someone has a question. If not, feel free to just tag us. Feel free to leave your questions, and we will definitely get back to you, irrespective of which forum. Even if I put this on Facebook or YouTube, just leave a question on the comment, and I will get back with an answer. I will touch base with Dr. Nikhil if there is a question. Obviously, I can't answer it. So I will touch base with the expert and we will get back to you with whatever the question may be. If it is about you, a loved one, something that you're concerned about, or even if it is about getting mental and emotional health for someone who is going through this entire journey of cancer. With that, I think we come to an end. Thank you so much. Wishing you good night, Dr. Nikhil.
Good night to you too. And good night to everyone.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right. Yeah. Good night, dear audience. See you then. Bye-bye.